Chapter 6. There were big adventures and small adventures, Mr. Bunsey knew. You didn't get told what size they were going to be when you started. Sometimes you could have a big adventure even when you were standing still. From Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure. Hello? Hello, it's me, and I'm going to give the secret knock now. There were 3 knocks on the stable door, then Melicia's voice rose again with, Hello, did you hear the secret knock? Perhaps you'll go away if we keep quiet, said Keith in the straw. Shouldn't think so, said Maurice. He raised his voice and called out, We're up here! You've still got to give the secret knock, shouted Militia. Oh, prrr, said Maurice under his breath, and fortunately no human knows how bad a swear word that is in cat language. Look, this is me, okay? A cat, which talks? However will you recognise me? Should I wear a red carnation? I don't think you're a proper talking cat anyway, said Militia, climbing the ladder. She was still wearing black and had bundled up her hair under a black scarf. She had also a big bag slung from her shoulder. Gosh, you've got that right, said Maurice. I mean, you don't wear boots and a sword and have a big hat with a feather in it, said the girl, pulling herself up into the loft. Maurice gave her a long stare. Boots, he said at last, on these paws. Oh, it was in a picture in a book I read, said Militia calmly. A silly one for children, full of animals that dressed up as humans. It crossed Maurice's cat mind, and not for the first time, that if he moved fast, he could be out of the city in 5 minutes and be on a barge or something. Once, when he was no more than a kitten, he'd been taken home by a small girl who'd dressed him up in doll's clothes and sat him at a small table with a couple of dolls and 3/4 of a teddy bear. He'd managed to escape through an open window, but it had taken him all day to get out of the dress. That girl could have been Militia. She thought animals were just people who hadn't been paying enough attention. I don't do clothes, he said. It wasn't much of a line, but it was probably better than saying, I think you're a loony. Could be an improvement, said Militia. It's nearly dark. Let's go. We shall move like cats. Oh, right, said Maurice. I expect I can do that. Although, he thought a few minutes later, no cats ever moved like Militia. She obviously thought that it was no good looking inconspicuous unless people could see that you were being inconspicuous. People in the street actually stopped to watch her as she sidled along walls and scuttled from one doorway to another. Maurice and Keith strolled along after her. No one paid them any attention. Eventually, in a narrow street, she stopped at a black building with a big wooden sign hanging over the door. The sign showed a lot of rats, a sort of star made of rats, with all their tails tied together in a big knot. Sign of the Ancient Guild of Rat Catchers, whispered Militia, swinging her bag off her shoulder. I know, said Keith. It looks horrible. Makes an interesting design, though, said Militia. One of the most significant things about the door below the sign was the big padlock holding it shut. Odd, Maurice thought. If rats make your legs explode, why do rat catchers have to have a big lock on their shed? Luckily, I'm prepared for every eventuality, said Militia, and reached into her bag. There was a sound as of lumps of metal and bottles being moved around. What have you got in there? Asked Maurice. Everything. The grapnel and rope ladder take up a lot of the room, said Militia, still feeling around. And then there's the big medicine kit and the small medicine kit and the knife and the other knife and the sewing kit and the mirror for sending signals and these. She pulled out a small bundle of black cloth. When she unrolled it, Maurice saw the gleam of metal. Ah, he said. Lockpicks, right? I've seen burglars at work. Hairpins, said Militia, selecting one. Hairpins always work in the books I've read. You just push it into the keyhole and twiddle. I have a selection of pre-bent ones. Once again, Maurice felt a little chill at the back of his head. They work in stories, he thought. Oh dear me. And how come you know so much about picking locks? He said. I told you they locked me out of my room to punish me, said Militia, twiddling. Maurice had seen thieves at work. Men breaking into buildings at night hated to see dogs, but they didn't mind cats. Cats never attempted to tear their throats out. And what thieves tended to have, he knew, were complicated little tools which were used with great care and precision. They didn't use stupid... Click. Good, said Militia in a satisfied voice. That was just luck, said Maurice as the padlock swung free. He looked up at Keith. You think it's just luck too, eh, kid? How would I know, said Keith. I've never seen it done before. I knew it would work, said Militia. It worked in the fairy story The Seventh Wife of Greenbeard, where she broke out of his room of terror and stabbed him in the eye with a frozen herring. That was a airy story, said Keith. Yes, said Militia proudly, right out of grim fairy tales. You got some bad fairies in these parts, said Maurice, shaking his head. Militia pushed the door open. Oh no, she moaned. I didn't expect this. Somewhere below Maurice's paws, and about a street away, the one local rat that the changelings had found alive was crouched in front of Dangerous Beans. The squads had been called back. This was not turning out to be a good day. Traps that didn't kill, Darktan thought. You found them sometimes. Sometimes humans wanted to catch rats alive. Darktan didn't trust humans who wanted to catch rats alive. Honest traps that killed outright, well, they were bad, but you could usually avoid them. At least there was something clean about them. Live traps were like poison. They cheated. Dangerous Beans was watching the newcomer. It was strange, but the rat who could think the most unrat-like thoughts was also the best at talking to kikis. Except that talking wasn't quite the right word. No one, not even Ham and Pork, had a sense of smell like Dangerous Beans. The new rat certainly wasn't giving any trouble. For one thing, it was surrounded by rats who were big and well-fed and tough, so its body was respectfully saying "sir" as hard as it could. The changelings had also given it some food, which it was engulfing rather than eating. She was in a box, said Darktan, who was drawing on the floor with a stick. There's a lot of them here. I got caught in one once, said Ham and Pork. Then a female human came along and tipped me out over the garden wall. Couldn't see the point of it. I believe some humans do it to be kind, said Peaches. They get the rat out of the house without killing them. Ha! Didn't do her any good anyway, said Ham and Pork with satisfaction. I went back next night and whittled on the cheese. I don't think anyone's trying to be kind here, said Darktan. There was another rat in there with her. At least, he added, there was part of a rat in there with her. I think she'd been eating it to stay alive. Very sensible, nodded Ham and Pork. We found something else, Darktan said, still drawing furrows in the dirt. Can you see these, sir? He'd drawn lines and squiggles on the floor. I can see them, but I don't have to know what they are, said Ham and Pork. He rubbed his nose. I've never needed any more than this. Darktan gave a patient sigh. Then smell, sir, that this is a picture of all the tunnels we've explored today. It's the shape I have in my head. We've explored a lot of the town. There's a lot of the, he glanced at Peaches, a lot of the kind traps, mostly empty. There's poison all over the place. It's mostly quite old. Lots of empty live traps, lots of killer traps still set, and no live rats. None at all, except for our new friend. We know there's something very odd. I sniffed around a bit near where I found her, and I smelled rats. Lots of rats. I mean, lots. Alive? Said Dangerous Beans. Yes. All in one place? Smells that way, said Darktan. I think a squad should go and look. Dangerous Beans got closer to the rat and sniffed at her again. The rat sniffed at him. They touched paws. The watching changelings were astonished. Dangerous Beans was treating the Kiki as an equal. Lots of things, he murmured. Many rats, humans, fear. Lots of fear. Lots of rats, crowded, food, rat. You say she's been eating a rat? It's a rat-eat-rat world, said Ham and Pork. Always has been, always will be. Dangerous Beans wrinkled his nose. There's something else, something odd. Strange. She's really scared. She has been in a trap, said Peaches, and then she met us. Much worse than that, said Dangerous Beans. She's frightened of us because we're strange rats, but the smells revealed that we're not what she's used to. Humans, Darktan spat. I don't think so. Other rats? Yes, no, I don't. It's hard to tell. Dogs? Cats? No. Dangerous Beans stepped back. Something new. What shall we do with her? Said Peaches. Let her go, I suppose. We can't do that, said Darktan. We've triggered all the traps we found out about, but there are still poisons all over the place. I wouldn't send a mouse out into that lot. She hasn't tried to attack us after all. So, said Ham Pork, what's another dead Kiki? I know what Darktan means, said Peaches. We can't just send her out to die. Big Savings stepped forward and put a paw around the young female, cuddling her protectively. She glared at Ham Pork. Although she might nip him sometimes if she was annoyed, she wouldn't argue with him. She was too old to do that. But her look said, all males are stupid, you stupid old rat. He looked lost. We've killed Kikis, haven't we? He said sadly. Why do we want this one hanging around? We can't send her out to die, said Peaches again, looking at Dangerous Bean's expression. He had that faraway look in his pink eyes. You want it trailing around eating our food and messing things up, said Ham Pork. It can't talk, it can't think. Nor could we not long ago, said Peaches. We were all like her. We can think now, young female, said Ham Pork, his hair rising. Yes, said Dangerous Beans quietly. We can think. We can think about what we do. We can pity the innocent one who means us no harm, and that is why she can stay. Ham Pork's head turned sharply. Dangerous Beans was still facing the newcomer. Ham Pork reared up instinctively, a rat ready to fight, but Dangerous Beans couldn't see him. Peaches watched the old rat with concern. He'd been challenged by a weedy little rat who would not last a second in a fight, and Dangerous Beans hadn't even realised he'd made the challenge. He doesn't think like that, Peaches told herself. The other rats were watching Ham Pork. They still thought like that and were waiting to see what he would do. But it was dawning even on Ham Pork that pouncing on the white rat would be unthinkable. It would be like cutting off his own tail. He very carefully let himself relax. It's just a rat, he muttered. But you, dear Ham Pork, are not, said Dangerous Beans. Will you go with Darktan's crew to find out where she came from? It could be dangerous. This made Ham Pork's hair rise again. I'm not afraid of danger, he roared. Of course not. That is why you should go. She was terrified, said Dangerous Beans. I've never been scared of anything, shouted Ham Pork. Now Dangerous Beans turned to face him. In the candlelight, there was a glow in the pink eyes. Ham Pork was not a rat who spent a lot of time thinking about things he couldn't see, or smell, or bite, but... He looked up. The candlelight made big rat shadows dance on the wall. Ham Pork heard the young rats talking about shadows and dreams and what happened to your shadow after you died. He didn't worry about that stuff. Shadows couldn't bite you. There was nothing to be frightened of in the shadows. But now his own voice in his head told him, I'm frightened of what those eyes can see. He glanced at Darktan, who was scratching something in the mud with one of his sticks. I'll go, but I will lead the expedition, he said. I'm senior rat here. Doesn't worry me, said Darktan. Mr. Clicky's going to be in front in any case. I thought he got smashed last week, said Peaches. We've got 2 left, said Darktan. Then we'll have to raid another pet shop. I'm the leader, said Ham Pork. I'll say what we do, Darktan. Fine, sir, fine, said Darktan, still drawing in the mud. And you know how to make all the traps safe, do you? No, but I can tell you to. Good, said Darktan, making more marks with his stick and not looking at the leader. And you'll tell me which levers to leave alone and which bits to wedge open, will you? I don't have to understand traps, said Ham Pork. But I do, sir, said Darktan, speaking in the same calm voice. And I'm telling you that there's a couple of things about some of these new traps I don't understand. And until I understand them, I'd very respectfully suggest you leave it all to me. That's not the way to talk to a superior rat. Darktan gave him a look, and Peaches held her breath. This is the showdown, she thought. This is where we find out who is the leader. Then Darktan said, I'm sorry, impertinence was not intended. Peaches picked up the astonishment among the older males who were watching. Darktan. He'd backed down. He hadn't leapt. But he hadn't cowered back either. Hammondpork's fur settled. The old rat was at a loss to know how to deal with this. All the signals were mixed up. Well, obviously, as the leader, you must give the orders, said Darktan. Yes, but my advice, sir, is that we investigate this. Unknown things are dangerous. Yes, certainly, said Hammondpork. Yes, indeed. We will investigate, of course. See to it. I am the leader, and that is what I am saying.